Today, we've got Anthony back on the show talking about a wide variety of subjects about how to improve your conversion rate and your click-through rate by different things like prices and different content, and even 17 different types of images. How cool is that? Pretty cool, I think. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Serious Sellers Podcast by Helium. I'm your host, Bradley Sutton, and this is the show that is a completely BS-free, unscripted, and unrehearsed organic conversation about serious strategies for serious sellers of any level in the e-commerce world. And we got a guest back on the show for the first time in a while. If you guys are looking for more of his backstory, you don't know Anthony, I have here in my notes, first ever episode he was on was episode 292. Go back and listen to his superhero origin story, and he was also on back in episode 403. Now we're in the 700s somewhere here, and back in 2025. Anthony, how's it going, man?
Dude, Bradley, it's great to be on. I had actually forgotten that I had done a episode, but I thought this was my first one. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it and see what's changed in those years. But thanks for having me here, man.
Great to have you back. Now, in the first time, it was interesting. You were at PickFu, I believe, at the time, and then your topic was talking about, like conversion rates and split testing and things like that. And that's always been top of my mind. Like I've been talking about, split testing and PickFu since like probably before I even worked at Helium 10, back in 2018 and before. But I almost feel that in the last year, that topic is more mainstream now. Like, first of all, there's a lot of like PickFu type companies, coming out, for years, it was only PickFu. And then now whenever I go to conferences, back in the day, it used to be kind of like only mainly talking about, the importance of this, but everybody is weaving into their conversations or their talks, it seems, about, hey, your click-through rate, your conversion rate, your images, it's so important. Have you noticed that yourself too, or what do you think?
I think you're right on the money. And, I'm still close with Justin and John, the owners. I remember when I was there, Helium 10 was also on top of it because there's obviously the PickFu integration inside Helium 10. And when I first started working there, I told Justin and John, I'm going to make sure everyone in the industry knows about split testing. And I feel like I did a pretty good job with that. And I think people, you don't have to convince. When I started there, you had to kind of convince what is A/B testing, why is it important. Now it's kind of like a default. I got to put a budget that's just as important as making the creatives to go and do market research.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the reasons why it's become more mainstream and more widely used is, there's a lot of new fees on Amazon. Advertising's more expensive, profitability is difficult, tariffs, whatever. And this is like one of those levers that you can push. Like if you're feeling the squeeze somewhere, people are now finally understanding, oh shoot, like a 1% difference or a 2% difference in my click-through rate or conversion rate, that makes up for this, all these new fees and stuff sometimes. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's becoming more mainstream. But what about you? Like what are you preaching as these days as far as that kind of thing goes? Like what do you think are the main levers that can, outside of just, split testing, which I think, like we just said, is a no-brainer now. But what are the levers that you're suggesting people push to help, click-through rate, conversion rate, things like that?
My big thing is what I call high volume variations. So if you're going to your creative department or your internal team, and the thought is, I just need one really good set of assets, and then I'm done, potentially for 2 years or more, that's not the way to go about it. What I'm trying to think about is how can I create 4 variations of each asset class? So 4 main images, 4 secondary images, 4 A+ content. And then I'm going to roll that out into Amazon over 1 month manager experiment tests. And by the end of 12 months, there's a very low probability for the vast majority of sellers that something in there, some combination of those 4 for main, secondary, A+ is not going to outperform your current. But very low probability that you have the best possible assets and there's no room for improvement.
I feel like 5 years ago, you probably couldn't say that on stage because your options to do something like that is like a $3,000 bill from a photography studio, to get all, like basically 4x the number of assets you're doing and stuff. But now I would assume you're kind of referring to like, hey, whether you have an initial photo shoot or not, AI can help you have way more variations of your images than you could 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think even now you can't really say that. I've taught a few conversion workshops in the past year, and I always go around. These are big sellers, 7-8 figure sellers. I go around and I'm like, how many of you have updated your main, your secondary images, or your A+ content at any point in the last year? And it's usually less than half. There's a big feeling among especially larger sellers that, man, I haven't changed this for a long time. I don't want to mess with it. It's working. I'm ranked really well. And I don't think that's the right way to go about it. And I guess we'll get into that a bit on this conversation.
You mentioned manage your experiments. I've used that before too. At what point is, I think before you start your listing, obviously, use Helium 10 Audience powered by PickFu, like to do it beforehand. But after your listing is live, now you kind of have an option. And so a lot of times I'm of the philosophy where I still kind of have the preference of using Helium 10 Audience, not because I work for Helium 10, but it's because my philosophy is kind of like, hey, if you've got different images and you think one is way better than the other, you're not sure which, or you have 3 different ones, if you're using manage your experiments, almost by definition, 50% of the time, 66% of the time, whatever, you have an under optimized listing, over a course of a month for this. And so it's like, you're almost by definition shooting yourself in the foot with lesser conversion rates than you could be getting, as opposed to, hey, let me just run this thing for one day and already have the answer and then start. So I still do use manager experiments because I love getting the extra analytics that you can have. And then plus it's an actual thing on your own listing. But where do you draw the line where it's like, hey, let me use one of these off Amazon split testing tools as opposed to using the free, that's also an aspect of it. It's not free to use Helium 10 Audience or these other services like PickFu. Manager experiments is free, but other than the fact of free versus paid, where do you draw the line on which route you should go?
You got to do both. And in fact, I don't work for PickFu anymore, but I'm still very, very encouraging of market research. I recommend you start with a baseline test. So if I generate 6 versions of my main image, I'm going to test them against themselves. Then I'm going to take the winner from that and I'm going to do a competitive test. So I'm going to test against the top 3-4 competitors. And then the winner of the competitive test is going to be like my V1 that I upload into Manager Experiments. So obviously people have seen the examples of PickFu telling you one thing and then Manager Experiments being different. PickFu is not an oracle, right? These are not real people buying your product. It's not great for seeing, it's not ideal for seeing which one won. I want to understand why it won. And then most important thing, the thing people miss out on with PickFu is they run the test. They're like, oh, my asset won, now I'm done. What you really got to do, the magic happens in revisions. I want to dig into that feedback. They have the AI analysis. I want to dig into the feedback and I want to go through a few more revisions if possible before uploading. So the market research off Amazon is a way to speed up instead of waiting 4 weeks for your test to be completed. Yeah. Now I can get some sense because again, high volume variations, I should have 4 to 6 versions going into test. And so I can't wait 6 months for all of these. Eventually I will. Manager experiments is always the final point. But before that, I want some rough idea of where I should be going.
Awesome. Now, another thing you've had experience with, I remember you had your own company for 3D modeling and doing images in that direction. Now in 2025, for either your own, accounts or your clients or your network, what should sellers be doing now for images? Is it still hey, try and get some 3D images, done and then, variate with AI there? No, your first, do a full real photo shoot, like those $1,000 ones at a company like AMZ One Step or something, and then iterate, with AI. Or are you hey, take a cell phone picture of something and with, advanced AI that's out there, you can have your whole image stack and A+ content done with AI. Well, what are you suggesting for sellers nowadays?
In my mind, it's not that I don't have a preference. It's just going to be budget related at the end of the day. The great news for sellers who are new in 2025 and beyond is you can create, and I've done this, amazing looking assets, better than my agency did back in the day, purely using AI. I think we're still a little bit too early. Like, designers are not going away. I still own half of Fade Visuals. Corey, I had a call with him earlier today. What we're really working on, and we've been doing this for the last year, is the model needs to switch. And so again, designers aren't going away, but the expectation is going to increase dramatically. So in the past, it was acceptable for an agency to spend 1 month on a project, maybe longer, maybe multiple months, to get main, secondary images, A+ content. Now the expectation is going to be you're going to be able to do it in probably half the amount of time with, again, 4 variations per asset class. And the agency isn't just delivering, hey, here's pretty images. It's like, I'm giving you the images. I'm confident that something in this mix is going to work. And here's the exact plan for how you're going to upload and test over a period of a year. And that's got to be the expectation for agencies. If an agency is not doing that, probably just go and do it yourself. You know, if you talk to an agency and they're not giving you multiple variations, and if you're spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, there's a couple agencies that charge that much that I think are really solid. I did a case study with Share It Studio. I think we'll talk about it on this. But like, I mean, DIY is solid, and you can get great assets out of AI. It's incredible, honestly.
Nice. You know, a couple of years ago, you were at a lot of the same conferences I was at, and I would hear you talk, and you had some good, like talking tracks about, I remember it was about images, you know, along these same lines about how, you know, to capture buyers' attention and things like that. You haven't been at a lot of the same conferences that I've been at lately. So like, what have you been, you know, speaking about, or what's your latest specialty, or what are you passionate about these days in the industry?
My big thing is I've broken CTR and CVR optimization down into 4 phases. So phase 1 is categorization, phase 2 is generation, phase 3 is validation, and phase 4 is execution. So in categorization, it's kind of like you have a master keyword list. I'm going to see all the keywords. I'm going to see what I'm indexed for, what my competitors are indexed for, but you do it with images. So you categorize all of the competitor images by type, and more important is purpose. And I have like 20 different image types for secondary images. And purpose is like, what's this image trying to accomplish?
20 different types?
Yeah.
Well, like our types as in like, or infographics, lifestyle, but like that's like, you know, main image. That's about all I know. Like what are the other 17 types of images?
So this is just for secondary. There's probably like 5 or 6 types for main image, but secondary, it gets a little more dialed in than just infographics. It's like a product anatomy graphic is going to point to different areas of the product and explain what it does. An inclusions graphic is going to show you what's included in the product, the before and after. And applications is one of my favorite. It's going to show all of the different use cases. So if a shopper is shopping for a Bluetooth keyboard and it says perfect for traveling, perfect for digital nomads, perfect for teachers, you know, so it gets really granular. And if I can categorize an entire niche by purpose and I can categorize it by type, then I've got at least an idea for what is already happening in the niche. The same way you would optimize a listing to be like, everyone has an applications graphic for this Bluetooth keyboard. I don't have that. Maybe you try adding an applications graphic. So you categorize everything by purpose and by type. That's phase 1, categorization. Then you move on to generation. So you basically get a shot list from categorization, and then you just go wild with AI, whether you're using ChatGPT. The new Nano Banana is honestly insane. Midjourney is really technical and advanced, but very high quality. And you're just generating all these assets, as many as you can, starting off with secondary images. And then I'm going to take those secondary images and turn them into A+, depending on where I want to position things. Once you've generated the assets, then you move into validation. So you can do this inside of Helium 10, Pixfu, any market research tool. You've got all of these different versions that you've generated. So now you're going to baseline test against itself. You take the winners from that, you do a competitive test, and then you wrap up with manage your experiments. And then in the execution phase, it's like, okay, now theoretically, all you should have to do at this point is you have a plan for how you're going to upload one test manager experiments per month on each asset class until you've completed all 12. Some rules for if something doesn't go well, like how do you end a test early and what do you do? Like, how do you iterate on the process? And then the most important thing, especially for larger sellers out there, is once I find out that something's working on my hero, if it's a similar product line, well, what worked there should theoretically work on these other spots. How can I, as quickly as possible, expand this across an entire portfolio of brands?
Nice. So knowing initially what ones you should even test, you mentioned like looking at competitors, and we've always talked about that. I remember Tomer Rabinovich was one of the first ones talking about that strategy, where it's like, hey, look at all your competitors, lay out all your competitors' images. And we've had something like that in Helium 10 and Listing Analyzer, where you add all the competitors, hit a button, and then you can see like a layout of everybody's first image, second image, third image. You're looking for themes like, hey, everybody's got like a infographic that has the size dimensions, or hey, everybody's using a model. And so that's like the initial way of knowing maybe what ones you should do. What are some other things? Are you doing like, AI research on the, reviews or something like that? Or is it strictly your first thing is just mainly looking at what the other competitors are doing?
First step is going to be analyzing the competitors. And I hope that this is why I'm hoping I can go out to Helium 10 and meet you and sit down in person. But I have an AI that'll do all of this. Before, I used to manually calculate it by hand, and it took hours. Now this thing will just look and it'll tell you purpose, it'll tell you type, and a few other metrics I created. So if you already are importing all these images into Helium 10, it would be great to, you click a button, come back 5 minutes, and it's telling me 50% of people for Bluetooth keyboard are talking about being able to connect multiple devices. That is like step one. And it's kind of the same standpoint that if I'm writing a listing, great, I can go and copy what everyone else is doing. I can find gaps for myself and I can improve it. But that's just like your V1. V2 would be, okay, how can I create a shot list that instead of being based on what's already there, how can I like kind of do the opposite of that and take like some deviations from what everyone else is doing? And then V3 would be based on review data and Rufus questions. And then V4 would be market research. So if I ask an open-ended question through Helium 10 or PickFu, and I'm like, what do you think is the most important factors of the Bluetooth keyboard? Then I'm going to create a shot list based on that. And so my thought is that if you test 4 of these things, you're going to find some combination that's going to be your winning, and you just keep iterating on that. What I like about this is it's concrete. So instead of you go to an agency or your internal team, they give you something and you're saying, okay, this looks better, but that's not an objective metric. Oh, the hypothesis is we're doing, replicating what's currently in the niche. Here's some other factors, some other metrics that I've created. And, now I have something to test. Over the years, I've worked with a lot of big companies. I look at their manager experiments. They have 200 tests in there. You look at the hypothesis and it's blank. And I go to the team and I'm like, what was the point of this test? Nobody knows. Like, well, I had this A+ and this A+. Well, what specifically are you testing? So if I'm able to get much more granular and say, oh, we're changing our A+ so that on our second module, we're going to do an applications because we think this is super important. And we're just like rotating order of things. I've seen crazy improvements in CDR. Not crazy. It's like a % improvement on CDR. It's not crazy at all. But all they're doing is they're taking image position 4 to image position 2, same exact gallery. And so it's like, if I can come up with a concrete hypothesis and a way to define this stuff, it makes the optimization much more logical rather than it's just magic and we're just kind of spraying and praying.
Yeah, I like that. Like maybe for major things like, hey, I want to see what's the price point, or I want to see the main image. I'm kind of answering my own question I had about 20 minutes ago, like that would be what you use Helium 10 Audience for. But a lot of these secondary things, it's probably not good for a 50-person audience. Like you need the full month of data from a manage your experiments. And it's going to be, like to the 100th decimal point, so some of these stats that they give you. So, a lot of these secondary tests totally make sense to use manage your experiments in that. So I like that. What else is working, for you and your clients out there, and whether it's SEO, whether it's listing optimization, photography, what else you have going for you?
The thing I'm learning a lot more about that seems to make an impact is price testing. And I'll get into this in a minute. I kind of come up with a metric that I call VCTR and VCVR. But the thought is, if I have my conversion rate, visuals are only going to be one part of that conversion rate. So price is going to be a component, reviews are going to be a component, organic placement, badges, and then the actual product itself is, brand recognition. That's going to be a piece of it. So, and I'll go through a case study in a few minutes, but I think that price is one of those things that is starting to become very popular, like prophecy and flash pricer. But I think there's a lot of upside on that. Can you modulate the price and set goals of things like increasing sales velocity? I see it all the time, and I'm sure you do too. Someone's doing terribly on Amazon, and you look at their price, niche average is $50. They're selling for $150. Amazon, not to be mean to Amazon, but it is a race to the bottom in the sense that people want the lowest price possible. And I can spend so much time optimizing my images. I knew a cycling brand. They made cycling glasses. Huge brand recognition. I'm a cyclist. I know the brand very well. They do terrible on Amazon. The reason is they're selling glasses for $150. Everyone else is selling it for $25 or $30. So it doesn't matter what they do in terms of their images. Amazon might just not be a good platform for that. On the other side, like if you're close on price, people are running deals. I know you teach this strategy. A lot of people talk about it for like certain segments of the month on a weekly basis. I'm just dropping my price, even if I'm losing money, just for the purpose of, improving. I guess what I'm getting at is I can like that, snap my fingers and improve my conversion rate. Let's just drop your price to like $5 if it's $25. See what it does.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess what I'm trying to get at is I don't look at conversion as like just visuals, but what are the other levers that I can pull? Price, I think,
Absolutely.
is a good one. Yeah.
All right. Before we get into I definitely we always love hearing about case studies, and it's one thing you just talk about it, but actually to give actual experiences. Obviously, I'm big on that too. But before we get into that, any tips or experience lately with off Amazon things? Like, for example, Walmart, TikTok Shop, like wasn't even a thing, last time you were on the podcast. Do you have anything to say about any other marketplace?
Amazon is just one channel. If you're focused entirely on Amazon, you're very narrow-minded and you've got to expand your horizons. That's just all there is to it. So like Walmart is a huge opportunity. I'm seeing more people and some tools that allow you to get into other marketplaces like Target, Home Depot very easily. Direct to consumer, it's like slam dunk. If all your eggs are in Amazon's basket, there's so many things that can happen, and you're just setting yourself up, not for a good time. And like I was saying with the example of the cycling glasses, some products are just not good fits for Amazon. And my friend, my former roommate in Vietnam, he sells these barefoot leather sneakers called Bramfords, a great product. He tried to launch it on Amazon. It did terrible. Direct to consumer, he does millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. Amazon keeps sending him emails, hey, come and sell on our platform. He has no interest in doing that. And so I think the people who are looking in a broader scale and leveraging AI to get there, like Walmart has different configurations for images. Now I can quickly change that, get that done. People who are worried about launching into retail, now, oh man, I need to make new retail packaging. That's $1,000 to go and hire a designer. I got to do this, all of these things. I think we're going to see one day where it's like you've got a successful product on Amazon and being able to expand multi-channel is, I don't want to say a click of a button, but it's not going to be the months and months effort to get there that it is now.
With Helium 10, TikTok is now a click of a button. We actually programmed something where you hit a button and all your Amazon listings get converted with AI and images imported to TikTok Shop, and it works within like 60 seconds. So these kind of things weren't, first of all, TikTok Shop wasn't even around then, but like Walmart, we got to do that next. But like, that's been one of the big drawbacks, I think, of people starting Walmart or Shopify is they don't know what makes a good Walmart listing. They don't want to have to take the time to take their whole catalog over there, or I don't know how to create a Shopify website. I don't know, how to fulfill it. But, with things like the tools that are out there on MCF and stuff, things I think are more possible, where everybody needs to be thinking, multi-channel, not just, like 7-figure sellers and up. All right. Well, some of these strategies you've talked about, you said you have some actual examples you can talk about how people, what people implemented.
Yeah. So I'll go with my favorite one. I've done a lot of case studies over the years. One of them was the coffin shelf with fade visuals. That was a fun one. The most recent one, though, I'm so proud of this because, case studies don't always go well. Sometimes you try and it's like pretty mediocre results. This one was out of this part good. And it's what I call my God mode case study. So basically, back when I was at Data Dive, I taught office hours a few times a week. And I would always try to pick a product and do the same one over time so people could learn and follow. Same thing that you do. And I kept using this shoe cleaner, sneaker cleaner example. I think you're a sneakerhead, so you've probably used some of these different products before. And I kept covering this over and over again. And one day I get a message from someone who is from the brand Pink Miracle. And I kept saying like, man, Pink Miracle, if you look them up, you'll see organic rank, complete ones completely down the row. Price, great price point, made in the USA, like 45,000 reviews, niche average of 5,000. But their images were garbage. They had only 3 images in their secondary stack. Very basic main image, no A+ content. And so when they reached out, I was like, look, you guys gotta let me, this is a slam dunk. If we come out with new images, we are gonna destroy, we're gonna do extremely well. And so they were open to it. My good friend Raphael from Share It Studio, I was like, hey man, can you come in? And basically asked him to do the work for free, which he basically did. It's like at cost. And I was like, we need the best assets here, but you're going to get a lot of exposure in this. It's going to work out really well for you. And it took a few months to get the project together and make it happen. But basically what was happening in that niche over time, and this is consistent for most niches on Amazon, is images are not static. If you wait a year, 2 years, the level of images in the niche are going to go up. So over time, there have been more and more competitors that have come in with great assets. And even though they were ranked number 1, they were the best seller, you'll see that the market share over time is declining until it got to about 25%. So if you're already in number 1 organic position for everything and you improve your CTR and CVR, what's going to happen? You can't go higher than 1. Your market share percentage is just going to go up. And so when we uploaded the assets, we went from $250,000 a month. And about 2 months ago, I got an email from the brand owners saying that they had just crossed the $1 million mark for the product. And what's really exciting about it, and there was also some sponsored brand video, which I can cover a little bit. The assets look great. Share It Studio did a fantastic job. Within line of this high volume variations, they created probably 16 versions of main images. They tested everything on PickFu. I think Product Opinion also helped, and IntelliV helped. Amazing A+ content, amazing secondary images. But the really exciting part, Bradley, is the shoe cleaner is just one of their products. It's their hero, and it carries the weight of the portfolio. But they don't only sell that. They sell cleaning brushes. They sell sneaker wipes. They sell shoe deodorizers. And so this is what I'm talking about. Very similar product lines. You find out what works with the hero, and what we're working on now, and I have a little bit of data, is now I'm going to go and apply this to the rest of the portfolio. If the rest of these products all have 1% market share, 1% market share, what's it going to look like if I can get that up to 10%? What's it going to look like if I can get that up to 25%? And then the specific numbers for the Hero ASIN, I want to say when we started, the brand had 25% market share. Now it's just shy of 50. Conversion rate went from like 20% to like 25%. We're able to make some big improvements in CTR as well. And then when you do both of those things, you're seeing your ACoS drop. What I will say, though, this is the last little bit I'll wrap up on this, is this still didn't go as deep as I wanted. And this is the issue that many sellers run into, is they get the assets up, they're awesome. They see the improvement in CVR and they're like, cool, I'm done. And this took a little bit of time and we're still rolling this out, but okay, that's not your finishing point. I want you to see this through the course, 1 manager experiment test per year. And let's see if we go from 20 to 25, can we squeeze out over a period of a year another 5% from changing image order, changing different variations, things like that.
Interesting. Yeah, and this is important because I think people out there, even larger sellers who are doing good. It's not like you took somebody who's selling 5 units a day and they went to 20. This is somebody who was already doing well. There's room to improve. There's so much that people are not doing. It's actually kind of shocking. Like you said, I forgot. You had just said it. 50% of the audience, weren't changing their images and stuff like this. Sellers, if you guys are listening to this, you might be doing good numbers, but there's always room to improve. And so that's why it's important to be looking back. And also, you got to change your strategies. A lot of the stuff we're talking about today, we probably weren't saying exactly, 4 or 5 years ago, because it was a different world. Things we were saying back then that were working, we're not saying those anymore because strategies change, rules change on Amazon. So you got to be able to pivot. Any other tips and strategies you'd like to share, things that have been working, or things that you've seen out there that you think are pretty wild that maybe not many people know about?
Well, I just want to leave you with this last this thought related to the case study and another metric that I've been working on called VCTR and VCVR. And I've kind of alluded to this already, but the thought is, if I'm looking at conversion rate, images are not all of my conversion rate. There's different factors: price, reviews, placement, all of these things I covered earlier. So why did this shared studio case study work so well? Well, it's because images were driving a very small portion of the conversions. The majority of people, they like 45,000 reviews. They like that it's showing up in the first position. And so if the conversion rate is 20%, all of these things are a weighted factor, right? But their images must be small because the images aren't good at all. And so if I improve my images, there's this big delta that I can have, in this case, like maybe 5, 7, even 10% improvement in CBR. And so what I'm really working on right now is trying to figure out a way. I have a long equation with ChatGPT. I think I'm getting closer and closer on it. But how can I look at like SQP data and see, here's my ASIN CBR, here's the niche average, here's all these other factors weighted. And I want to find more of these brands, that you could look and see. This has a huge potential for growth from image optimization.
I like it. You've been giving a lot of strategies here, but before we get into like a 30 or 60 second strategy, how can people find you out there on the interwebs these days?
Just search my name, Anthony Cofrancesco, Facebook. If you send me a message on LinkedIn, I'm probably not going to respond. But like Facebook, Instagram. And if you ever need something urgent, just send me message after message after message. I won't get annoyed. It's just, I get a lot of messages, and yeah, I think that's probably best. Social media, just reach out, shoot me a DM. You'll be surprised. I actually do answer. It might take me a week, but I will. And I love to hear from people. So
any new cool travels you've done in the last year or so, like new countries that you were able to knock off the bucket list?
Man, this was freaking sick. I'm a big skier, and I skied in Niseko in Japan after Christmas. Man, I've skied all over the world, and it was just absolutely mind-blowing, like the best powder I've ever had. I spent a month this past year with my girlfriend skiing. We did a little Europe trip. We did Chamonix, we did Zermatt, and we did St. Moritz. We did Zermatt is like out of this world good, biggest elevation drop you'll see. I always love going back. I try to go back at least once a year, if not twice a year, to visit my buddy Matt. I spoke at his wedding. He's got a kid. He lives out in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. I'll try to swing by and see all my crew from Manila back in the day. The thing I'm finding though is, back in the day, I used to try to just add as many new countries as possible for the sake of doing it. And now I'm just, I like spots and I just go back.
Quality over quantity.
It's not about a number. So I love going back to Brazil, spend a lot of time in Brazil each year, and just spending more time with my family, honestly. I used to fly 80 times a year. Now I'm like, I want to have like one meaningful trip every quarter. I try to cut back on events, maybe one event a month, but really ideally one event a quarter.
You going to be able to hit Premier 1K or not anymore with reduced travel? They keep increasing those limit or the what you have to do. It's crazy.
I keep saying it, but this is my last year for real. So I'm going to do what I have to do to spend and get my segments. But after this, it's so stupid. But United is coming out with their new business class in 2026. And so I want to use
and
my plus points
Starlink on all flights. Can you imagine? For people who work like us, I mean, it's crazy. My parents have a lot of points with Korean Air, so I stole some points from them just a few days ago, coming home from Korea. Brand new airplane, or not. I don't know if it's brand new, but it's a A380, and no Wi-Fi at all. It's not like, oh, there's no Starlink. I don't understand how there's flights that don't have Wi-Fi, but then it's like crazy, to know that eventually all United is going to have Starlink. You can technically, as long as you're not, interrupting people, be having a Zoom call, at 30,000 feet. So that'll be interesting. That makes me stay loyal right now to United. But anyways, back to e-commerce. One last 30 or 60-second tip for the audience.
We're in the end. This is the end. Bradley, you've seen it from the beginning. I've seen it from a little after the beginning. This whole game is going to be, I don't want to say wrapped up in 2 years, but with automation, do what you can, execute as much as possible, take action, because I think 2 years from now, it's going to be a very different landscape. That's all I'll say. Yeah. Keep working, keep hustling. It's not over yet.
I like it. All right. Well, thank you again for coming on here, and let's make it not a couple of years like we had last time for you coming back, and love to talk to you next year to see what's up, and maybe talk to you in your last couple months of Premier 1K membership. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hope to see you at a conference soon.
Heck yeah. Good to see you, Bradley.